Hi, this is Mitch with the Fresche support team, and today we're going to look at installing the TG Central component on a Windows server. So first we're going to grab our download. We see we're at the customer portal here. Just going to select current downloads. And here you'll see a list of all of your, once it loads, all of your products that your company has entitlements to. So likely not as many on your screen. So we're going to grab TG Security Suite, and we're going to go to Software Downloads at the bottom. And we can see all the different components. We have documentation, we have the IBMI installation, which is included in another video. And we're just going to grab the executable for the Windows installation files. So I'm going to let that download. And actually, you know what, I have a copy myself. So once that downloads, we're going to want to copy that to your Windows server. So we have a remote desktop set up here. And here is my executable that I pulled off the portal there. Now you can see an email has come through with some download information once you go ahead and download the tool. So I'm just going to double click this. We're going to run this installer. This is just a quick wizard, should be quick to get through. We'll agree. We'll install the components. You can set a custom path. I'm going to leave mine as default. And this is just going to quickly upload here. And there we go, we've completed. So I'm just going to hit finish, and it's automatically going to fire up your default browser. And we're going to look to configure our instance. So we have 3 steps here. And we're just going to work through this. So I've actually got this already installed. The default admin username is just going to be admin. That's kind of the super user of the account. And then we can set the admin password down below. Now, this email can be changed in the future within the configuration, but we'll leave that as mine for now. So I'm going to go ahead and hit next. Let's not save that. And here we see the parameters, so where we want to connect to our TG Central instance. So we'll walk through what some of these mean. This is just going to be how we connect on the Windows server. So you'll see 80, that's typically localhost. I am going to change that on this system. Now you likely won't on yours. We just have something else running on these ports, unfortunately, on this test box. So those can definitely stay as defaults if you have nothing running on your Windows server over those ports. Now the TG Central agent number, that's something that allows the IBM system to communicate with this Windows server. So by default 7444, I'm going to leave that as default. We don't have anything running over that port. We can enable or disable a secure connection with HTTPS, and TG Central actually ships with a self-signed certificate here, so we're just going to leave that as default. You can install your own certificate. Again, that can be done within the configuration once the tool is installed as well. I'm going to go ahead and hit next, and this is just going to give me an overview of my configuration right now. So I'm happy with that, and I'm going to hit save. Alright, so because this is a self-signed certificate, it's going to warn me about connection at the start there. And there we go. So we'll allow access. We've got our version up here. I'm going to go ahead and hit login. And there we have it. We have our TG Central instance up and running on our Windows server. So we see here, I have my IBM system already trying to communicate with this instance. But before we get this, what you'll likely see is an empty list here. And what the possible cause of, there's a few areas that we want to look at. First, let me pull up my IBM system. And I'm going to take a TG menu. And we're going to open up the TG Central configuration. Now this may take a minute. Upon first opening it up, it needs to catalog all of the Python components. of the tool, so it may be a little slow to open up the first time. And here we have it. So we can see on my system we're all up and running. This may not be the case in yours. The TG Central IP address, that's going to be pointing to the Windows server here. The server name, we can just assign it a name for identification purposes. And here we see the communication port. So if you remember during the configuration, we had 7444. That's what the agent is communicating over. We have SSL enabled, and we have the incoming transactions and alerts. We're set those to no for now. We're just going to get the basic setup going. The log status obviously can be whatever you'd like. If you're having troubles connecting, maybe switch that to debug and everything's going to be printed to those log files. Now at the top here, you may not see this. You may have star no's for either of these. There is some documentation around how to install Python, what is required, often done through Access Client Solutions. We'll provide a link to that wiki article alongside this video. Just going to take a look at the agent status. So in F21, here we can see what a typical subsystem should look like here. We have some service jobs, and then we have our Python job at the top here. And if you do start up your server, you have star yes for both of these, and you start up your server and you see these top 3 jobs. If those aren't on your list, you're likely running into a connection issue with your Windows server and being blocked by the firewall. And that's what the next step is going to be. I'm going to pop over to my Windows server, and we're going to look for firewall. Now, within the inbound rules, we essentially need to open up access to that 7444 port so that TG Central can communicate. So I have my rule here. I'm actually going to delete this, and we're just going to build this together. So I'll remove that, and I'm going to create a new rule. We're going to type of rule is going to be port. We'll leave TCP. And the specific port is going to be that agent port, 7444. We're going to allow the connection. You can apply based on your needs here of when this rule is applying. And I'm just going to give it a name of TG Central so we know what's going on here. Perfect. And we'll finish that. You'll see that pop up on your list there. And now we have active connections through the 7444 port. So if we look here, you can, at that point, if those jobs have already died off, you'll need to restart the agent. You can do so with an F23. We'll take an F23 there. I'll do an F21 to see that those jobs are going to die off. See a status of end. Should take a second here. And there we see it's fully been ended. We'll F12 back, and we're just going to start the agent with an F22 now. So if you were seeing those jobs die out before, you can wait a few seconds, make sure that they don't time out and end. They should not now that the firewall has been opened for our agent port. Perfect. So we see those jobs start up. Let's pop over to our central instance and see that our server is still coming through here. We see I actually have a few test boxes here that are all trying to talk to this server. And they'll first come in, you'll see with the orange icon there that they are trying to communicate with this TG Central instance. However, they are not managed, so we can't do anything with them until we select the action and the manage server. At that point, we're able to run reports and fully utilize TG Central to its full capabilities with that server. Now, the only other thing I wanted to show was what also needs to be running on your Windows server that allows the communication with the port is just actually a service that's installed. It should automatically start upon installation. Let me scroll down. Oof. A little slow today. And TG Central. So if this service isn't running, communication will not be had between the Windows server and the IBMI instance. So there you have it. When we go to install, we need to make sure the subsystem is running on the IBMI. We need to make sure that the firewall is open on the Windows server. And we need to make sure that this service is running, which should be upon installation. And that is all. Thanks.